Thank you for joining us this evening. This is the November 15th meeting of the Yakima School District Board of Directors. We have interpretation services tonight from Andromeda Interpreting Services. If you are live streaming, there is a Spanish live streaming link, and you can tune into these services. You can find that on our website. As I said, we offer live streaming options for our meetings. And there is a link on our website. You can go to find it fast or just go directly to the district's website at www.ysd7.org/board meetings. We will have public comment options tonight. You can sign in for public comment prior to 3 o'clock if you are live streaming, or if you are in attendance, just sign in on the sign-in sheet. We are also recording on YouTube, or we will have that on our YouTube channel, probably the beginning to middle of next week. And you can find the link on our webpage to our YouTube channel. Barb, could you conduct the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Present.
Director Walker,
Present.
President Rice,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr., and Vice President Villanueva are excused.
Thank you. Asked Director Beckett to lead us in the pledge this evening.
If you would join me, please, as we honor our nation and our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ryan. And then I've asked Director Walker to share with us the character word of the month.
The character word of the month is fortitude, strength of mind that enables a person to encounter danger or bear pain or adversity with courage. En español, firme, fuerza de la mente que permite a una persona enfrentarse al peligro o soportar el dolor o la adversidad con valentía.
And I have the pleasure of reading the land acknowledgement this evening. The Yakima Land Acknowledgement. Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation. The people of Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties. Today, we honor those Native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture. We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today. We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial. An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect and a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture. It also honors the truth. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation. Next item on our agenda are reports. First, reports from members of the board. Do we have any board members who wish to share anything with us, the rest of us? No. I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege and an early congratulations to Director Walker, who finished the Washington State School Directors Leadership Academy. Is that the name of it?
Leadership Academy or cadre, I'm not sure before.
Okay. This is a 1-year commitment, and it involves a lot of reading and a lot of discussion. And the goal is to build the leadership characteristics of school directors. So you graduate tomorrow?
Tomorrow's the last session.
Okay, you graduate on
Well,
Thursday.
Actually, tomorrow is the final session, and Thursday is just recognition
Okay,
at a dinner, I believe.
well,
President's dinner.
early congratulations to you.
Thank you. It's a worthwhile endeavor. Learned a lot.
Yeah, I know I enjoyed it when I went through. The board and some members of the board and the superintendent will be over in Spokane this coming weekend, right? Wednesday through Saturday, for the annual Washington State School Directors Conference. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about that next week or next time we meet. Okay, next we have the superintendent's update. Dr. Green.
Thank you, President Rice. I look forward to receiving the graduation photo from Director Walker. It's been a long time since I've received one of those, so that will be fun. And I look forward to supporting you on Thursday night when that event does take place, a culmination of acknowledgement. As far as updates for the board over this last week, several things to share. Over the last week, I was able to visit several schools: Nob Hill Elementary, Robertson Elementary, McKinley Elementary, Davis High School, and then today was the K-8 online center at the Innovation building. So it was wonderful to be in 5 buildings over the last week to see the wonderful things that are happening with our leadership in their context, and to see the development of that K-8 online offering at the Innovation Center, and the 6 dedicated teachers or staff members that we have. In addition, a principal overseeing the growth of that program, and the co-op for homeschool, which is in implementation or in process for implementation next year. In addition, I'll share with you that over the last week, I've been able to represent the district at a Children's Alliance board meeting, which was virtual in Seattle. So representing our community with the Children's Alliance and making that connection with early learning and legislative priorities with respect to looking out for the early learning opportunities for our students. Also, I participated in a education ambassador board meeting. So I am on the College of Education hand-selected ambassador board for Mia Tuan, who's the chair of that committee at University of Washington. Made some wonderful connections there regarding early learning as well. And there's some nice opportunities and networking that we're looking to connect with over the next year. So that's, again, a wonderful opportunity to expand offerings and opportunities to support our students in our community. On Friday during Veterans Day, I traveled to the west side of the state and met with an unnamed legislator. I'd rather keep that off record, but not somebody in our area, but somebody highly interested in the area of bilingual education, to see what could be done as far as securing additional funds towards bilingual education and what that could mean to our community. So this legislator is very interested in opportunities here on the east side, along with the area that this individual represents on the west side. So coordinating potential efforts to secure legislative funding in that area is of paramount importance to us, especially as we continue to grow our programs around dual language and everything that bilingual education entails also. Lastly, I'd share with you that we had some wonderful news that I received on Sunday night after 3+ years of connecting with Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Athletic Association. We were able to secure the endorsement of the executive board at that state level to host the track state championships at our district stadium, which will take place May 25th through 27th, I believe. I'm not sure if those dates are entirely accurate. That might be the 2023 dates. Well, that is, I guess. So it will be 2023. So it is May 25th through 27th. And that'll be the 1B, 2B, and 1A state championships at our district stadium. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen now that we've secured that. They stepped away from the site, Sheeny, in Sheeny, Washington, where they were hosting that previously. They were looking for short notice to secure a place. We have a 2-year commitment that'll be assessed, and then we'll have the opportunity to put a request in to have that for a longer term. So this is kind of a probationary opportunity, and I would be remiss if I didn't credit the foresight of numerous individuals that preceded me, and many that currently still work in the district, some in the capacity of track coaches, and that have made the district stadium what it is today. It's one of the only, if not the only, high school stadium in the state that offers the ability to have men's and women's contests done concurrently. So high jump, long jump, pole vault all at the same time, instead of separating those experiences or delaying those. So that's also a plus. I will be coming forward at some point to the board with a request or endorsement or input on how we should approach this year. One of the challenges now is that those days actually coincide with school being in session. And so parking obviously would be a premium at that site. And I have some homework to do now that we have the support of the state to see how we can make this work and what are our options to pull off this event with very to the liking of the executive board, and also then recognizing that really everybody that we have with experience on hosting a track meet will be over in a different side of the state at another track meet. So that is a different challenge as well, because we will be lacking personnel. So it's something that's on my mind, and I'll have a meeting here shortly with Sarah Cordova and likely Stacy Locke and others to see how we can kind of move forward and plan for that opportunity. So that's the report this week, and lots of good news and lots of opportunities. And do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board? That should bring a lot of revenue into the city.
Very excited about that. I think it's probably, since this is being recorded, hopefully this is the announcement to anybody from the media that is watching. I don't think that has been publicly announced at this point, but it has now. And it is a wonderful opportunity. I have been sharing around the valley in certain areas where I'm speaking and have the opportunity to interject in group settings that we were pursuing this option. They anticipate that we will have hotel rooms filled from Ellensburg to Prosser, which may seem like a great distance for us, but if you compare that to the west side, the travel there and the hours that you sit in traffic, it's really not that big of a deal. And they've shared as much. Mick Hoffman has shared as much. I do believe that it will be a great revenue generator for the city, for restaurants, businesses, hotels, all of the like. I will say that the entity that currently will not be a big winner financially will likely be the school district. So it's an offering that we can go out and support our community and hopefully create some goodwill across the valley, and especially as we enter into an opportunity to have a future levy and bond. But it should generate a lot of opportunities here for our community, and hopefully we'll then find some available grants that have also been made privy to me through Executive Director Hoffman to offset some of the expenses that I think will likely come our way. So obviously the goal is to be cost neutral in all of this. It should not cost our taxpayers anything to run such an event in which we don't benefit financially. So at the same time, we recognize the importance of embracing the entire community and opportunities for students. So I'm excited about what it could mean to Yakima, and my longer range goal, and I shared this with Mick Hoffman, is that we also bring the remaining track meets over here as well. So I would love to have them run from, we have the 4A, 3A, 2A, 3A, and 4A, perhaps the first week, and then it would free up all of our staff to then host the second one. But we'll have to wait and see if we're able to secure that at some later event. But currently we do have state softball and state volleyball and obviously basketball occurring here. So it's rapidly becoming tournament city for the state.
That's excellent news. Thank you. Any questions from board members? Okay. Next on the agenda is the monthly financial update. Jake Cooper. Thanks for joining us, Jake.
Well, thanks for having me. Board of distinction as well. I get to have to say that every time I see you all. So
That never gets old.
it doesn't. I know. So I have two reports this evening. One is the year-end. The first one, if you don't mind. Sorry, Barb. So two reports before this evening. One is the end of the fiscal year, so fiscal year 21-22 that just ended. So as you recall, it takes the district about 6 to 8 weeks to close the books. Our fiscal year ends 8/31. And by the time the accruals run through and we develop our financial statements, you're now to that point in time of the year. So I will, there's a lot of redundancy and information between the two decks, slide decks, because they're just point in time. So I will skim through them appropriately. And please feel free to stop me and ask me if you have any questions whatsoever. Important thing in your governance role, of course, is the all important and never perfect Cinderella of all numbers, which is your fund balance, which is how much money you have in your savings account at any given time. I say this with all professional sincerity. There is a wide range of opinion on what fund balance should be. Some folks would like it to be 3%. My financial organizations, like the GFOA, would like 2 months of operating, or about 16% actual expenditures. State average right now for fund balance is about 14%. You're coming in the end of the fiscal year at 11%. So you are in line with industry standard of a district door size. But again, there is no perfect number of fund balance, but that does provide you with sufficient liquidity throughout the year, meaning you'll be able to pay your bills on time, which is important, and it meets the board's fund balance requirements as well. So anything on that summary slide? So I'd like to point you to the beginning of fund balance at 9/1/21 on that slide was 30 and a half, and you ended the year at 30.8. So stable, as we talked about. Board President Rice and I had a brief conversation before the meeting as we were getting ready, and I told her the government finance should be boring and predictable. That is always my goal. I won't be boring, but the numbers will be boring. What financial presentation would be complete without a pie chart? 2 pie charts of notice here. Mostly do not strain your eyes. I will provide you the salient highlights. Things that I would like to bring into your point of view here is, if you look at prior year, which is the 2021 year, about 72% of our total revenue came from the state. That declined in 21-22, mostly because if you see, there's a large increase in federal revenue. So from 20.4 to 33.1 million. And then federal ESSER, as you can see, went from 12.8 up to 26.5 million. So there's not a significant or precipitous decline in state revenue, but what you saw was an increase in federal revenue, which altered those percentages significantly. The state is still picking up between 65 and 70% of your basic education tab currently, and that depends if you count LEA or not. So, but stable state funding. Of course, we will watch them as the session comes in shortly. Expenditures for salaries and benefits. So this is the objects. If you hear to us financial folks in school district business talk about expenditure by object, those are large groups. So certificated salaries, classified salaries, employee benefits, etc. Of importance on here, nothing that we weren't aware of as the year was running through, but certificated salaries increased both because we added additional full-time equivalent staff, and wages and salaries and benefits all increased as well. You will notice some anomalies, something unique, particularly in purchase services and applied materials. I'm only bringing that up because with the use of ESSER money, sometimes you have large one-time purchases in those areas that they need to be concerned about. Historically, your traditional expenditures outside of salaries and benefits are moving along just how they should be. Speaking of ESSER, some celebration here. So the rainbow slide, which I inherited, but I will continue to use because I think it's very effective. It shows ESSER 2 in this case. So just to remind the viewer and the board of directors that this evening, there were 3 tranches or installments of ESSER funding. ESSER 1 expended long ago. ESSER 2, as you can see, both for the community and the board this evening, that ESSER 2 has been fully expended. And you can see the areas tied to that. So 24.3% for school safety and in-person learning. Superintendent Locke, looks like there's some influence there from you. And then again with the physical, emotional, and social well-being support. So it is, when I was looking at the top three, so what, 60, almost 70%, those are three very large buckets of policy and program, but something I wanted to kind of highlight in a cluster. So you'll see that you've got safety, physical health and wellness, and then the implementation of new educational delivery models. So Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez and has had her fingerprints all over that work. But I did want to point out though how everything kind of coalesced as planned, and large one-time federal money was used appropriately and with fiduciary responsibility, which is the most important thing. But again, the district stuck to these strategic plan underpinnings. I don't know what they were called at the time. I won't call them buckets. Areas of expenditure in ESSER. And so it was good to see that come out to a wonderful conclusion. We do have, however, ESSER 3. Of that, there's 41.2 million available. We have expended 8.1. And just for this reason, there's no encumbrances right now because this is the fiscal year end, and at year end, all those encumbrances go away. So there are, as you look into the next deck, as we get into September and October, we'll see some encumbrances there. Yes, Superintendent Green.
Could you remind the board the deadline for expending ESSER 3 funding? And then a follow-up question or request is around the rumor of us being able to encumber funds and extend beyond that deadline. So would you please?
Yep. If I recall, we were looking at what, 9/1/24 or 9/30/24?
Correct. September of 24.
So September of 24, I had it listed here somewhere. September of 24 is the original obligation period for ESSER funding. As Superintendent has suggested, there are potentially, it could be an funds allocated versus funds, or funds obligated versus funds expended situation, which is very common with federal money. They often change the spend down windows. So we will see. There is, I think last check, there is several $100 million of ESSER money still in the state of Washington yet unexpended. And so as the legislature goes into session, they will of course be looking at that to spend red dollars first, and red dollars in this case I'm referring to federal funds. So we would have to get the federal government's blessing, be nationwide, of course, to extend that deadline. And we are on track and have planned to expend those funds in the current period of September of 2024. However, though, any additional time would be potentially helpful because we want to be very thoughtful on how we spend one-time money. Anything else on that, Superintendent?
No, thank you.
So any questions on ESSER 1, 2, 3? There is one last little component, and this is near and dear to Assistant Superintendent Jenny Rodriguez's heart. This is the 20% that is required for learning recovery and learning loss. And I say Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez because she has been anointed as the one kind of overseeing that large budgetary item along with the rest of cabinet. But you can see there that there's $10.3 million dedicated to learning loss. To date, I believe most of that money was for expanded summer program and additional some intercession as well. That would be correct if I believe. Oh, and after school programming. So as it was intended for ESSER, that large portion of our 20% of that set aside is going to its intended purpose and providing students additional opportunities to gain credits or increase learning overall. Any questions on the learning loss portion?
I have one question. I was curious if efforts to improve attendance district-wide is included in the school engagement category.
Well, I believe so, but I would have to refer to my education colleagues.
We actually have attendance as one of the items in the 10-point framework. So there's been funds set aside specifically for that out of each of the regular buckets of ESSER 1, 2, and 3. That learning recovery has really been direct additional instructional time to students. So intercession, after school programming across every one of our elementary schools, and summer programming across the system. The other way that we'll be using that funding is around curricular adoption. So we're currently going through an English language arts and Spanish language arts adoption, which is extremely expensive. So those funds are really going to be eaten up in the next 2 years as we make sure we have the best materials for our students and our staff moving forward.
As we get towards the end of the financial summary, this is a slide that I've used over the years because I believe fund balance and the amount of equity should be as transparent as possible. So this takes you in detail of what's in your savings account. Remember, your equity, your fund balance has been accumulating over time since the district has begun. Any year where there was revenues in excess of expenditure, you added, and then the opposite in years where you had a deficit spend. So, but overall, your current, as we talked about, is 11.17%, 11.2% of actual expenditures. And then, as that slide goes forward, you can see that. Or as I go down that slide, there's restricted for carryover, which is that those are grants, gifts, donations, and state revenues that have been provided to the district but yet unexpended, but had carryover requirements to them or allowances in them. Restricted for Skill Center, we are part of the Skill Center Consortium, obviously, and that is the equity balance from YV Tech that you see in that balance. Self-insurance, that's a requirement for Department of Labor and Industries, as we have self-insurance. And I will not belabor you with all the assignments. However, I would like to take you to the final bottom number, which for the board of your $30.8 million, or total fund balance of about $30 million, approximately half is reserved, and then half is for to meet your minimum 5% fund balance policy. And so you can see that it's approximately split 15 million of each, just to put it in perspective. But kind of wanted you to know that off the napkin math in case you were asked by a community member and had that knowledge at your fingertips. So any questions on fund balance, the Cinderella of all numbers? Okay. Brief SWOT analysis. I think we talked about it. Sufficient fund balance, meets board policy. Again, this is the end of the financial year where we started funding the Davis Auditorium. So we continue to put that out front, but that's moving forward. And I do believe, and as we've demonstrated by our data, we have prudent use of one-time federal funds. And then I will do some of these other SWOT analysis because they're very similar in the next deck. If that's okay. Any questions on the year end? Okay, you get Jake for 2. Sorry. I'll do an interpretive dance if there's 3 PowerPoint decks, but until then, sit and get interpretive dance. You should see me with what are those called? Silk things? Okay. I'll stick to finances. And it's a scarf. Yes, thank you. So as I talked about, the board is required monthly per state law to get what's called the F780, which is the budget status report. Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Apologies. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. As we talked about, when the books close, there's a 2-month lag. So what you're seeing before you this evening is the September and October combined report. Very similar to slides historically. I have added a few in to spice things up for you this evening. However, some brief positive notes. September and October items of interest. As we get to the enrollment, very close to projection. So I give my hat off to Dr. Steech and Dr. Rodriguez. I can't take credit for those enrollment projections. They worked together and refined those prior to my arrival. But if I was doing them myself, I would be darn proud of the results. So you can see they're within I think within 8 or 10 kids on October enrollment. The key to an accurate financial picture is accurate projected enrollment. And so this budget before you, as you move throughout the year, is in a good place because enrollment started at an accurate point. And I'd be remiss if I wouldn't want to, we couldn't mention Dr. Darlin and I and a cast of characters have been doing our monthly CFAC meeting. So that's also part of some September and October financial points of interest.
Remind us what CFAC stands for.
Sorry, Community Facility Advisory Committee. I know that you love Capital Facility Advisory Committee. Apologize. There's a lot of acronyms in there. Thank you, Trevor. Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. We talked about enrollment again. I think the most salient point is not this longitudinal bar graph, but that right there, which is the line graph showing projected in actual enrollment. And you can see right in the October, you see what 15,433 and 15,441 was the projected versus actual. You couldn't ask for much better than that. So general fund revenue budget to actual comparison, we are in line with historical averages in that slide as well. This is a cash flow slide, a little different than you were seeing. I have been working on the cash flow model, trying to figure out how to project this. It looks a little choppy because I'm working on the inputs. So you will see throughout the year from me the projected cash, which is in blue, and the actual cash, which is in red. And I still believe cash is king. So it's one way that I personally use along with to monitor the expenditures of the district throughout the year. So it's cash is a good barometer for your spending rate, and then of course where your fund balance is going to be at the end of the fiscal year as well. So cash is always very important. We are above it slightly because we had a federal of ESSER money. So I should be able to explain to you if there's any anomalies and why cash is high or low. And that was timing of a federal drawdown for a rather large ESSER payment. So we are above our cash at this point in time. Budget versus actual, still on track. Payroll trend the same. And as President Rice, as we do these reports, please feel free to tell me either in public or private what slides you find of value or what slides you find not of value, I suppose, and we'll monitor and adjust if you'd like, or whatever the board would like from a macro financial level, we can adjust those reports. Same with MSOC, supplies and materials, following historical trends and patterns. And then here's the ESSER. We talked about ESSER 3, and as promised, there is an encumbered amount, so which means there are purchase orders in place that are expending against the ESSER 3. See, we still have a balance of nearly 28.9 million, but those numbers will change as we go throughout the fiscal year. As we look at the SWOT, which I always think it evolves over time, but our weaknesses still are our stagnating and decline enrollment. I've done preliminary enrollment projections. It looks like we're going to be down potentially 150 to 200 kids next year, and that's mostly because of a smaller inbound class, which is a statewide trend, less kids in K and 1. So as that comes, if that comes forward to me and I get a little more knowledge on next year's enrollment projection, I'll let you know exactly where we're going to hopefully land, or at least the projection is going to be. But again, as each student, depending upon how you value it, between 10 and 15,000, if you 15,000 plus, if you include all your revenue, so 100 students is $1.5 million, so it's not inconsequential to the budget if you drop a couple hundred kiddos. We continue to have the weakness, of course, in special education. Superintendent and I have continued to beat that message along the way. And Ben, do you have something to add on that side?
One that is obviously, that's one of our now supported legislative priorities. Do you have at your fingertips the expenditures that we have on?
There's a $10 million gap currently.
Thank you. 10 million.
And then the other weakness, of course, Assistant Superintendent Miriana, I know would be remiss not to add our continued dependence upon general fund for large capital projects, which we hopefully will ameliorate with a future capital measure. Opportunities, what do you know? Future bond measure, a CFAC potentially, a future capital levy. And then the other opportunity that was discussed earlier in the meeting and dovetails nicely is the continued expansion and growth of dual language. I think we're seeing that push statewide, and in particular, Yakima obviously is an awesome place to grow that program. So that is obviously an opportunity, one that does not have its pitfalls as we move forward and expand, but certainly something that is a great opportunity for the district. And then, of course, the legislature, we talk about them as a blessing and a curse, and that they can be, and their session starts in January. And then the macroeconomic situation is hand-wringing for people in finance. I don't know. Nobody knows really where it's going to head. If inflation is going to continue and recession may not come, but historically, after inflationary time like this, you will have a recession in your economy. So we will see what happens to our local tax receipts at the state level. But it is something that, as you know, all of us around this table have gone through the Great Recession, which was no fun at all. And so we hope for way more pleasant road than that. But that includes our SWOT analysis. Thank you for reminding me to finish that up.
Thank you.
Any questions from board members for Jake on either of these two reports? Thank you, Jake.
Thank you for having me.
Next on our agenda are comments from the public. This first comment opportunity is for issues that are on tonight's agenda. Has anyone signed up, Barb? No. Okay. We do have another comment period at the end of the meeting. Next on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. In tonight's consent agenda, we have minutes from October, and these are for meetings on October 3rd, October 11th, October 18th, October 24th, and October 31st. Okay, here we go. Approval of warrants for October 2022. And tonight we have one group of ASB warrants, 3 groups of general fund warrants, 2 groups of payroll warrants, and 1 group of capital project warrants. Next, we have approval of personnel actions, budget status reports for August 2022, budget status reports for September 2022, and budget status reports for October 2022. Any board member has the right to ask that any item be removed from the consent agenda for separate action and/or discussion. The consent agenda is typically comprised of items that are routine in nature and required board approval, either by policy or by legislative direction. Does any board member wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Norm, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have an approval to pay the ESD 105 for after-school programming for 2022-23 school year. Dr. Rodriguez, is this you?
It is indeed.
Okay.
Thank you, Board President Rice, members of the board, requesting your approval to pay ESD 105 for after-school programming in the amount of $914,000. This is an extension of the program that we started last year. We do have a 21st Century Grant program that pays for some after-school programming at 6 of our elementary sites. We felt it was imperative coming back from COVID that we have after-school academic programming for students at all 13 of our elementary schools. So we partnered with the ESD last year to develop an after-school program that is focused on helping students accelerate and learn missed skills while also being really engaging and providing snacks and connection with peers and with caring adults. Many of the staff that staff this program are our own staff. So while it is run through the ESD and they take care of all the operational tasks for us, it is many of our own employees that are choosing to participate in a contract with them to provide the services to their students. We do serve 40 to 60 students at each site in grade bands of 2 grades. So at the end of the year, we could come back and share with you how many students were served in this program overall, but it is like about 120 to 180 students per elementary school, which is anywhere from 20 to 35% of the students who attend that school over the course of the year. Happy to answer any questions.
Related question, how about transportation for those students? Do we run activity buses or late, we have to do late buses for all those kids. So where's the funding for that coming from?
I'm looking at Stacy Locke, who oversees our busing, but for many of our students, they're within walking distance or have childcare providers that pick them up. So I don't know that we are providing busing with a late bus, but I could find out and let you know.
Okay. Yeah, because
Stacy's shaking her head no.
okay, because an equity issue would be some of the West Side schools like Gilbert, Whitney, bus kids in from the east side of town, and so those kids may be missing an opportunity that they should be, unless they can do the after school thing on the east side. But that otherwise we have a real equity issue then.
Yeah, they do participate at the school where they attend.
Okay.
They are identified. It's not just an open participation. They're identified through assessment measures. So the students most in need of additional extended learning time are invited, and the school principal and faculty work with the family. So I do believe they've tried to address those barriers for family when necessary. It runs for a couple of hours after school. So it does provide, I think, for some families an opportunity for the child to stay there and then for family to pick them up later.
Any other questions? You said that Jenny, that they are in bands of 2 grades.
Mhm.
So is kinder in a band with grade 1?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so K1, 2, 3, and
And
4,
4, 5. Mhm.
Perfect. All right. If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion. The board has been requested to grant approval to pay ESD 105 for after-school programming in our elementary schools in the amount of $914,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ryan, seconded by Norm. Is there any discussion? You did take some baseline information at the beginning of the year, so we'll have something to compare the end of the year to.
We do. And as you saw in the budget presentations this evening, we've invested significantly in our data systems to be able to have real-time data that we can make actionable decisions for students' academic and behavioral supports. So we do have screeners in place, and 3 times a year, every one of our students is assessed in the areas of literacy, mathematics, and social emotional behavior. This is the first year we've had that in place in Yakima, so we're really excited about how that is improving our ability to respond.
It'll be interesting to see what the results are as we hit each of those points of time. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. There is no further discussion. You ready for the vote? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you very much. And we have reached the second opportunity for comments from the public. No one else has signed in. All right. Dr. Green, do we have a need for executive session?
There's no need for executive session tonight.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Thank you very much for coming out on this cold and dreary night. And I wish each of you a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and safe travels if you're traveling, and safe travels to my fellow board members and superintendent team who might be going to the WASDA annual conference. So with that, we are adjourned.